Yes, the meeting is being recorded. Got it. Mommy, get the briefcase in her. Yes, she did. No, put it in a sandwich bag and put it in the refrigerator. That'll work.
Oh, that didn't help. So,
Yes,
welcome to Paranormal, the New Normal, and our first ever live streaming brought to you by Parapost Network, which I am Parapost Network. Sorry. Wow.
It's okay. We knew. We getting it together.
Well, yeah, I messed up already, but brought to you by Parapost Network, which I am very happy to be a part of. And I thank Brian Laverty for having me on and inviting me to be a part of this wonderful thing. And my guest today is Shante Hood, who reached out to me on, I believe, on Facebook about becoming a guest in this show because of what she does for a living, and well, one of the things she does. And I'm gonna let her tell you about that.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Shante. I also go by Earth Angel Shante. And yes, I met Brian through a post on Facebook. He said he was doing a little podcast on paranormal stuff, and that's right up my alley if you know me. A little bit about myself. I am a certified health and life coach. I'm also an intuitive medium and a tarot card reader, and I do a whole bunch of other like off-world galactic type stuff, but we'll find out about all that stuff later. I am very much into paranormal, just the way it moves, the way it operates, and how it is ever present with us, even while we're here. So I'm excited to be here.
And we're excited to have you. So, what do you commonly do for people? Because I know it says in your Facebook that you're a remote psychic and medium. So
yeah. So what I do for the most part is tarot readings. So I have my tarot cards. I have different decks that I do readings with those with. For the most part, they're general readings. I do a live every Thursday on Facebook on my personal page, Shante Hood. That's every Thursday from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. I do live readings. So people can come in if they wanted to get a card pulled, they could just ask, and then I would read that card for them. And then I also offer private readings as well. I do those because I definitely feel like sometimes we need confirmation on our confirmation. Most times we know what to do in situations, but we don't be quite sure. And I like to give that confirmation through the cards.
Sounds very helpful to people. And just out of curiosity, how did you get started in this business?
I got started because I had an experience when I was 25 years old, sitting at home by myself. Okay. I was in the house by myself, wasn't nobody there. All the kids was at school. I hadn't smoked no weed yet that day. So I was very sober in mind. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I heard somebody say my name. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Wait a minute. And it just became even more powerful. You know how, like, if somebody's standing behind you and you feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and like you can tell somebody's there, but you look around and ain't nobody there. That's what happened. And I was freaked out. I was 2 seconds away from taking myself to the hospital, and I was going to tell them I'm having a nervous breakdown. I feel like there's people calling my name. But I called my little sister. I reached out to her. She said there was a lady on Facebook doing psychic readings. Maybe I should go in there and talk to her. I'm like, look, I'll do whatever because right now I think I'm crazy, right? So I get on to the Facebook page and the lady is doing a reading with someone. And
Oh, we lost you for a second there.
do you have me back?
I can hear you, but your video's going in and out.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Do you have me? Are we clear? Are we clear?
You're good to go.
All right. So I went into the live. As soon as I got in there, the lady stopped her reading. For some reason, she stopped her reading and she was like, somebody just came in here. They got a lot going on. I need you to show me who you are. I'm not thinking she's talking to me. I'm thinking, a lot of people probably just came up in there. But she was talking to me. And confirmation of the story is, girl, you got some gifts and some abilities, and you need to listen a little bit more to these guys when they talk to you. You have a lot to do. And it's been a journey since then. That was back in 2015.
Right. So, I mean, and yes, I do know what it feels like to have the hair in the back of your neck stand up because there's something behind you that you can't see. As the listeners of my show do know already, the house I currently live in does have its prior residents still living here beyond the grave. So, and there's a whole story in there of having paranormal investigators to my house and one of them saying thank you into my ear when I was talking to them about what I've done to the house.
Oh, that's what's up. That's good karma. Okay.
I'll give the short version because my listeners have heard the long version before and I don't want to make them listen to it again. But yeah, I mean, it's just basically that's what it was. And they still are here. You still get the feeling sometimes, but they calmed down a lot since the investigators were here. And basically since the beginning of spring, they calmed down a lot. So I don't know.
So you would say it's a mutual understanding that y'all have now.
Yeah, I mean, I improved on their house that their relatives sold me, but I've been improving on I've been improving on it. So I mean, they can't complain. I definitely been making it better as best as I can so far.
Good steward of the land. I can take that.
Exactly.
I can take that. How does that feel knowing that? Like knowing that it's not just you in the house, it's you in other energy, other people, to be exact.
Well, put it this way. My wife, then girlfriend, originally lived in a house in the Bridgewater Triangle of Massachusetts. And she lived on Native American burial ground, basically, that a house is built on top of.
Okay.
So I'm used to being in a house and knowing there's other things in that house that are not human and were human, but are no longer human and are now unseen to the naked eye unless you're sensitive to that, which my wife is to some degree, but I'm not. I'm really not. I've never been a sensitive person to that type of stuff, and as much as I always want to be, but
it's okay. You don't want to be woke up at 2-3 o'clock in the night every single night because they got something to tell you to tell somebody else. It is definitely a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I got a dog, so I know what it's like to wake up at 2-3 in the morning because they're barking their heads off. But I imagine it's similar and annoyance factors. But
it can be, especially if they don't know the boundary line. It can definitely be a party in the middle of the evening.
So was that the only experience? Well, obviously you have experiences all the time if they're talking to you.
I would say my first experience with anything paranormal, with anything spiritual, would have been when I was about 9. I was sitting in my mom and dad bedroom. My dad was still alive at this time, and he had this thing about us watching BET. Like watching the music videos and stuff, because back then they used to play after dark and it was the X-rated things on television. So he had a thing about us not watching that. So one day I'm sitting in the room and he was like, yeah, you can go in there and watch TV. Don't turn on nothing you ain't supposed to. I'm like, okay. He in there about to pass out. I ain't worried about it. I'm about to turn and somebody hit my face. I felt the smack go across my face. My face turned and I immediately looked around. Nobody's in the room with me. I thought my little sister slipped in there real quick. She moving like the road runner at this point. So I get up, look underneath the bed. There's nobody under the bed. Look behind the curtains. Ain't nobody behind the curtains. I come out of the room. I'm like, Dad, where's Shonda at? She in her room sleep. Well, let me go in there and make sure. My little sister, sure enough, in the room sleep. I come back out. My dad's like, what's wrong? I said, Dad, somebody just smacked me in my face. And I'm confused. Somebody smacked me. He was like, well, it was probably your great grandma. Was you about to turn on something you wasn't supposed to? I got to thinking about it. No, I
Yeah.
was thinking about it. So yeah, that was my first experience, and being a kid, it freaked me out. It never pushed me into wanting to find out more about how the fat granny can hit you when she did.
Yeah, I mean, well, that just it seems like such a typical thing that like a passed on older relative would do if they're still around the house. Like, I mean, especially I could see a grandmother doing that in a second. I could see a grandmother doing that in a second.
It was a split second reaction. The moment I thought turn it was the moment I felt it and was like, maybe not, maybe I won't do that. Now I'm freaked out. Now I'm freaked out. Other experiences, me and my little sister, we shared dreams together. Me and my older sister have as well. But it started with my younger sister. When we would go to bed at night, we tell each other, if you go to sleep first, I'll meet you in dreamland and I'll wait for you. And so whenever we would go to sleep, we'd meet each other at this little carousel looking thing. And we'd start there. And then from there, we would go to these slides. And depending on what slide we went down, depended on what type of dream we had. And sometimes we do those dreams together. Sometimes we do them separate.
Yeah, that's trippy. I mean, that's the best word I could think to describe that. That's like a little trippy, but that'd be amazing to be able to do that with a sibling when you're a kid. Like actually go to the same dreams and everything. Like that's like something I
When
would.
you're a kid, you don't know better. You
Yeah.
you, you don't know that it's y'all doing some extracurricular stuff. Are y'all sure y'all still at home? Wait a minute.
I mean, they say children are more sensitive to these things, so maybe children's minds can find a way through the barriers. I mean, we don't know what most of the mind does to begin with, so
Right.
maybe there is something up there that can help us push through
I
when we're
figure as long
REM.
as your imagination is open, anything is possible. As long as you don't close yourself off to any experience, anything is possible.
Yeah, I truly believe that in most senses. I mean, I've been looking for Bigfoot for years, but I don't see him popping out of the woods for me. But we'll see.
I
We'll see.
don't think he got to pop out too often. Look, just because if he popped out, what would people do? What would people think?
People would either a a certain people would try to harm it, kill it, or b people would run away in fear. And then it's the whole Jack Link's commercial of a person getting chased down the road by Sasquatch. But
Look, is there could be so many things going on when in all actuality he might be a regular being but knows to be fearful of certain humans because they don't have the open mind to say, hey, I see you, I promise I don't want to put you in your trap. What's your name? Do you know how to sign?
actually, it's funny you say that because I always say in this show, if I ever did meet a Bigfoot, the first thing I would do is calmly try to use a little bit of sign language to communicate with it. Like I barely know any sign language, but I know the basics, and I would just try that. And if it responds back, great. If not, I might need to start running, but we'll see how that
If
goes.
he come after me, start charging, then I'm gonna go the other direction and know that this isn't working.
Yeah, use sign language as you back up slowly, but
Sign language can be the basic conversation starter in everything, and it's just more so your body language, what it is, and how you're presenting that people can understand just that basic.
Yeah, I mean, I recently saw a thing today on that East Coast Paranormal was doing when they were doing a investigation in a haunted hotel where they were actually using sign language to try to communicate with spirits. And I've never heard of that before, and that kind of struck me as interesting. I was like, huh. I mean,
So have you seen the flashlight experiment?
yeah, I've seen that one, but sign language is just a new world I never thought of even using for spirits because I don't know why I wouldn't think of it, but with Bigfoot's one thing, but with spirit, it's like I don't know. It just
Right.
it doesn't connect in my head. Like the dots don't connect in my head for that one. But
So how did it turn out for them? Did it turn out very useful?
I honestly don't know. They didn't post a video or anything. It was just pictures and explanations of what they were doing. So if it was a video, I would know. But I'm sure they have one out there. East Coast Paranormal is a great group, and they're also part of the Parapost Network. So they're a good
Okay.
they're good people. I actually had one of them on about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So any what is the weirdest experience you ever had, either yourself or when helping somebody else? I mean, and you don't have to name names or anything like that, but I mean,
The weirdest experience I've had,
or just the one that freaked you out the most. Either way.
seeing ships in the sky that look like stars moving in unison and spreading out and closing back in and elongating and circling back. Yeah, it freaked me out so much that I drove to our local National Guard and said, "What the fuck are y'all up there doing?" Because I see some shit and this ain't normal. He said, "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Oh, I can't tell you what my name is. If you don't know what it is, I'm gonna go ahead and go."
Yeah, I mean, I've had some experiences with that as well. Up here where I live in north central Massachusetts, and then down on the South Shore near the Bridgewater Triangle as well. I've seen what looks like groups of stars, and my son actually pointed out to me one night. He's like, "Why are stars moving?" I'm like, "What are you
Right.
talking about? What are you talking about?" And like I look up, and it's just a cluster of like 8 or 9 stars. And if you turn away for a second, you can't tell they're moving. But if you look at
Right.
them, you can see them like slowly moving. Maybe I mean, we're miles and miles, thousands of miles away from seeing where they actually are. So it looks slow to us, but they might be going 150, 200 miles an
Right.
hour, or who knows, or more. So just one of those things where you get that creepy feeling. You're like, we should go in the house now, just in
No,
case.
I saw it, but the funny thing is, I did not feel creeped out. I felt more safe than anything. I felt more safe than anything. And I wouldn't be able to explain it other than I was just in awe. It just felt like at that moment I had walked out. Anything could have been happening. But I caught sight of that. And it was just like okay, well, if y'all up there doing that, what is it that y'all need? Why is it that you're presenting yourself to me to be able to see this? Because I feel like if there are other living intelligences other than us, that they can think and they can speak just like we can. So instead of me posing the question to you in verbal form, I pose that question in my mind while looking at those stars moving. And they said, "It is okay. We're glad that you see us. Do you understand?" "Yes, I sure enough do. Now tell me what the fuck y'all up there doing, okay?" So that way I don't creep out. That way I know that things are still okay. So I definitely feel like visitations happen. It's just a matter of, being open and aware.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard many stories of alien abductions, all the famous ones. I've of course heard a lot about. I've heard everyday people tell me about it too. And I mean, my wife swears she's been abducted a few times from her house that she used to live in. And I bought her a camera for her room just because to keep an eye on the kids during the day when she's like in the bathroom or something. But basically, and she caught on it one night lights outside of her bedroom window, like looked like spotlights almost. And then
Right.
it went dark, and you could see the outline of a huge, well, not huge, but a big, like burlesque looking creature who's just, yeah, like, and
Right.
it looked like it was standing outside the window. And then after a while, the camera just went fuzzy, and it didn't work again for like 4 or 5 hours. So no idea what happened. No idea what happened after that. But I keep telling her about the one trick I always heard, that if you think you are being abducted by aliens, put your pajamas on, or wherever you wear to bed, put it on inside out. Because if you wake up and it's right side out, then that's usually a sign that you've been abducted. I've
Then
heard,
you never come back.
I've heard that in other podcasts, and I feel like that might actually be a good hint, like a good tip to use. Because if if they think that humans will always put the right side out, then that's what they're going to put it back on you. If they're
Exactly.
eh,
That's one thing. It's like an inception moment to have that piece to tell you whether or not if you're in that if you're back in reality or if you're still under.
wow, someone who actually makes references to movies and TV besides me, I love it. I love it. Yep,
That
high
motherfucking
five all the
movie
way.
is the shit, okay? If you ain't watched Inception, you are missing out on a major keystone of life, okay?
Oh, I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and I still am trying to figure it out for life of me. But that's Christopher Nolan for you. But have you had any experiences with shadow people by chance?
um, in regards to doing readings with people, yes, I have, and have had to do a major cleanse and just protection over myself after, only because they didn't want that person to know. They didn't want that person to have help and to know it was them being malicious towards them. And because I was the person who then brought the light and exposed it, it then tried to turn negatively towards me. I immediately sensed it and immediately put up my protection and asked my guides to come through and clear me. And then from that, I didn't do any readings for the remainder of that day. And I think I took like a day or two break just to make sure before I stepped back in to that space that it was just me and me alone.
All right. So, they now, what do you? I usually save this for. Well, we're talking about it already, so I'm not going to save this one for creature feature. But what do you think shadow people actually are? Or what do you think they? I have my own theories, but I like to hear other people's theories first.
So I definitely feel like there could be two different types. Now, there are shadow people who I don't feel are malicious, but they just choose to show their self as not being seen as a dark entity. And that's probably because of whatever past that they can't let go of. That I feel that they would then present themselves to me that way. Another form of a shadow creature, something that's evil, maybe something that's evil, like a fucking succubus jumping on you, fucking you, and it's not a person, but you feel like you getting touched and hunched on.
But all right, so I'm gonna give you my theory that I have said before on my show, but I believe that when we pass on, if we're to stay on the earthly realm, that we go through phases of different types of spirits slash ghosts slash whatever you want to call them, souls,
Right.
where I believe when we first pass, we are just a white mist, like a white smoke almost, because we're baby ghosts basically, essentially, and we don't know how to take form yet. We don't know what we're doing or how to control our own vision.
How to control it, right?
So I think shadow people is the next step, because I think that's when they get in the hang of it. They can start forming a human shape, but they can't do features yet. So they just look like a shadow. And I've heard of black shadow people, like glimmering shadow people, like a static on old television. Or
Mm-hmm.
and I've also heard a few cases of pure like light shadow people who just look like they're made out of pure light. and it's blinding when they come in the room, from what I've been told. But and the final phase, I think, is when you could finally make yourself into a full body apparition of either what you look like as a human or what you wish you look like as a human, or something else completely to scare people if that's what you want to do. But
Right. If that's what the energy is on. If they with the shits, they with the shits.
basically, that's my theory on the different phases of being a spirit. So that's where I
I
think a
like
lot.
your theory.
I think that's where a lot of these encounters, like different encounters, come into play. Is just they're all the same types of things, but they're just
They're
different.
they're they're different strengths. They're different levels.
Exactly. I mean,
Mhm.
you come across a spirit in Salem, Massachusetts that's been there for 200-300 years. It's going to be a lot stronger than if you buy a house and the person just died a year ago. Like,
Right. But that's the same token as when doing mediumship, when connecting to spirits that have passed. Sometimes people who are freshly crossed over aren't able to really communicate with
yeah,
you as well as somebody who's been gone 20 plus years or 5 plus years. They done been there for a while to learn the lingo.
they learn the rules of their new stomping grounds, basically.
Yeah.
But and my other theory on shadow people is that they're not really shadow people. Some I think sometimes they're not shadow people at all. I think they're just possibly. I don't like to call them demons because I am not a religious person and I don't use that word. I like to call them just underworld creatures. And because every civilization since the beginning of time has had an underworld, so I have to believe there's some type of underworld and some type of above world, heavenly world, other world, whatever you want to call it. But
So it would be the planes would be the best way to
yeah,
explain it. You know how there's like limbo, and then you have that learning plane, and then you have the guiding plane, and then on and on and on.
yeah, basically
Mhm.
that's a good way to describe it. But and I think that these shadow people that people think they're seeing are just underworld creatures or underworld plane creatures who just are using that form because it's an easy way to sneak around a house or it's an easy way to sneak around. I mean,
And it's an easy way to gain energy too. Just think if somebody is sitting in fear, how easy is it for you to feed off of that fear? Even if you're not wanting to, be in that negative zone, if somebody comes in fearful, you're going to feel that off of them. That energy is exuding off of them. That might be what they feast for.
yeah, I mean, kind of the same way when your kid comes in really scared of something they saw outside, and you all of a sudden are like, you start getting all worked up in your head because you're like, what did they see? What did they see? Like, what was it?
Right.
Like the fear is transferable, kind of in a way.
Exactly.
So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me as well. It's just, I mean, what do you believe as far as like as a psychic? Have you ever come across, for lack of better words, we'll say angels or demons?
I feel like I've been across a lot of different types of spirits and entities. Yes. As far as denominations go and religion goes, I grew up going to church. I don't go to church now only because a lot of what I've learned over time, they're not explaining this to people in church. And I feel like the spiritual world needs to be explained to us just as much as our earthly world is explained to us. We should be able to know how to operate on both sides, and I definitely don't feel like religion has gave me that ability to be able to learn and operate on both sides, only because of the negative connotations that come with it so often.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the exact same. I was brought up in church every week, and I just slowly started questioning things and growing out of it. Because as most people in this generation have done, because it's just not.
It don't make sense.
It
That
don't make
shit don't add up.
it doesn't in any way or form, and it's just we're exposed to so much more nowadays on TV about paranormal and other stuff, and we just think a lot. I think we have outside the box thinking more than our parents' generation did, where they just accepted it as normal. You go to church every week, whether you fully believe or not. It's just what you do.
Right.
Keep it.
Remember, we were the children who grew up with the computer. the computer was our grow up. Like that's just how that process works.
Yeah, if you go to some of the websites we went to as kids, you find it hard to believe in anything. But it's just, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've heard some stories on this podcast over the last 2 months about people meeting demons and even people thinking they've seen a godly figure. I don't want to say God with a capital G, but like, because that's not what, that's not,
Seeing an
that's,
angelic bright being.
well, well, long story short, this is my guest last week. He died 12 times and he had near death experiences 12 times from overdosing, and he believes he saw, when he was dead on the table in the hospital, he saw what basically was like a giant gas cloud, and it kind of spoke to him in his head, and he believes that might have been a god of some kind or a creator. Yeah, he didn't like to call it God. He liked to call it was a creator. That's
Like
all.
a creator source.
Yeah, which I mean, his whole theory, because he talks to spirits too, uh, since this happened to him, and basically his whole theory on what we believe as God and devil and all that, like it's very interesting. His name is AJ. He's the one who got me on Parapost Network, and he's just his whole story is so interesting. Would recommend
Okay.
I would recommend all my listeners go listen to it because it's just mind blowing how good his experiences were, and just it blew my mind. I
Right.
mean, and the way he described it, of course, the only thing I could compare it to was when Bender meets God in Futurama. That's the only thing I compare it to.
Okay.
Like that's the only.
You remember the movie
Yeah, that's what.
with
Well,
Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come?
I think I saw it years ago. I don't. It's not in the back of my head at all because I saw it years and years ago when I was a kid. But
Okay. Okay.
but
Okay.
I may have to go watch that now just because you said that.
Look, it is definitely a movie to test the mind on, what happens and to give different theories about what happens for each person in that experience. I'd love to hear AJ's story, so I'm definitely going to look back not only on yours but also on the network's station as well
Yeah.
to see him and listen to that, because I would definitely love to hear anybody's side of that, because the only experiences I have had are those where I'm putting myself into that meditative state to then have those visualizations be brought to me. But to talk to somebody who's actually, you didn't have no choice but to experience that shit, oh yeah, I want to hear that.
Yeah, and I also had another guest before him. Well, AJ's from Country Circle Paranormal. I should say that first out, and he has a podcast of his own. Which, forgive me, AJ, but the name just is escaping me. Through the something, or I'm not gonna try it because I'm gonna butcher it. But he's from Country Circle Paranormal. He's on the network as well. But the other guest I had a couple weeks before him, named Christopher Susi, who's a paranormal investigator, he had 3 different experiences where he believed he met the devil,
Okay.
or if not the devil, some high demonic form of creature. And his stories literally had me saying, "Holy shit!" after each story, because it was just like, I'm not one to jump to believing in that stuff like right away, but his stories were so detailed.
But if there's details in accounts.
and the one story he told me about a place in Bolivia, I Googled it afterwards and I found actual descriptions of this place and pictures of this canyon in Bolivia, and it's hard not to believe it when you see exactly what he described in pictures. So I mean, it's just 2 guests I've had who have had really interesting experiences, and I try to always get the word out about them because they were just wow. I mean,
Right. And for people to know that it's real. Like, I promise it's real. I promise you this isn't a part of the movie. This is really happening.
so all right, I'll do this before we jump into creature feature, but because I never have had a guest who has had experiences with what I'm about to ask about, and I want one so bad. So And maybe, just maybe, do you think you've ever interacted with any fae or fairy realm type of creatures? I mean, that's a very broad definition, but I know. But
If I have, I wouldn't be able to say, oh yeah, I fuck with the fairy people. No. 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 Do I know people who have interactions with them? Yes. But me per se, no. I think my neighbor across the street is a fairy because he sits outside and talks to the beaver every now and again, and he'll just sit out there with his cup of coffee, and they'll just be standing there, and then all of a sudden he'll go in the house, and then the little animal will go about its way, and I'll be like, oh, okay.
that's well. I mean, well, all I'm gonna say to that is if you do know anybody who has had experiences like that, that's willing to talk, please give them my info, and that way I can try to get them on here.
Okay. Don't worry. I'm gonna send them your way. I'm gonna be like, I know somebody who want to hear about that story. Remember you told me about Tinkerbell? He want to hear you.
Oh, I do. There's a lot of firsts I'm still looking to get in this show for experiences. I mean, that's just one of many because there's not that many stories that people talk about out there about the fairy realm or fairyland or whatever you want to call it, but yet they're out there. I hear maybe 6, 7 a year, and that's about it. Which on the amount of stories I hear about everything else from Bigfoot to aliens to spirits is a small number. But
yeah,
I mean, but they couldn't have believed in this for hundreds and hundreds of years. And our ancestors, they couldn't have believed in it if it wasn't some truth to it in some way. I mean, unless they were all just drinking that mushroom tea and who knows what they're seeing. But I highly doubt that's the case in any scenario.
right. I highly doubt it too. I definitely feel like there are different realms within our realm. And like I said, just a matter of you being open, just your experience being open to that. Some people come here to have a certain experience where they don't have any of the paranormal or spiritual aspects. They're just more so in the life versus others. So I would say always be open. Always be open and things come.
100%. I mean, I always say though. Well, I don't. I always say it. It's a famous saying, but those who want to see don't see, and that's always been my issues because I've always wanted to see since I was a kid, but I'm looking too hard maybe, and I'm not letting my mind open up to it.
I don't feel that you're looking too hard. You know how like if somebody's having a conversation and how you try to ear hustle and like you thought you heard something, but that ain't what you heard. I feel like it's that for you. Only because you have put yourself around so many people to be able to have experiences. It's just a matter of you overreading sometimes when certain things happen instead of saying, oh, well, that was about to tip over anyways. I had a feeling that was going to tip, saying, who there? Because what you just touched that for, what do you need? And then being silent and feeling and just listening. I feel like spirit talks to us telepathically to where many times it just comes across as a thought, as an automatic, you know what they just said. Like if you look at your dog and you're having a conversation with your dog, you know that your dog is responding to you in a smart ass way by just looking at it and sensing its emotion. I feel like spirit works the same way. And it's just a matter of us quieting ourselves to be able to hear however it is they speak to us. Some people automatically have a knowing. Some people see things. Some people hear things. Some people smell things. Some people might taste their grandma famous cookies and they ain't had them in 18 years.
Well, actually, okay. I hate to keep bringing up past episodes, but it's funny you say that because my very first guest in this show, a friend of another podcast I'm on, Shanna, who's one of my friends now as well. She has the unique experiences of being able, when someone she knows very well is passing, she gets certain smells, and she'll find out right after that that person passed, and it'll be like her grandma's famous chicken cooking or something like that. Like,
Mhm.
and it's just
Yeah,
it's
that shit's real. And that's them letting her know ahead of time, hey, I'm transitioning. I need you to be aware. I need you to know that even though we might not be able to have this physical communication anymore, I want you to always know when you smell this, you know it's me. When you hear this song, when you hear this melody, that's me.
yeah. I mean, I've heard from multiple guests on my show about smells and visions and everything else and things they see when people are about to pass. And there's so many. I mean, I've never really been around someone who was in the process of passing, and if I ever got a sign about any, I've had very few family pass away, luckily. So if I ever got a sign of any of it, I completely missed it. But I mean, it went just whoosh over the head.
Right.
But who? I mean, who knows? It's very possible. It's. I mean, I don't even want to say it's possible. I think it probably happens, but just not to everybody. Not everybody can sense that stuff. It's a part of the
Right.
sensitivity.
And some people don't want to experience it. Even if you could, it's very hard to watch somebody take their last breath here and then take their first breath on the other side. It's a bittersweet moment because you automatically feel that release. You automatically feel all that heaviness and that weight and that burden of being in this position, and now it's gone.
Exactly. I mean, humans are made of energy, and it's been proven energy doesn't just disappear. It's always somewhere. So it would make sense that when humans do pass, the energy they had in them is released, and it either goes to a different plane or it sticks around and is able to do. And certain people can sense it. They stick around. Some people can't. Some people can sense it in other planes as well. I mean,
Right.
that's what psychics have been doing for hundreds of years. Whether, I mean, yes, there's always been a small percentage of frauds, but I believe a high percent.
Look, it's getting bigger. Don't cut it short. It's getting bigger. There's a lot of fucking frauds out there. Be careful who you lending your energy to.
I mean, yeah, Facebook and other social media sites have allowed that now since that stuff first started. But I see more ads for people doing readings online than anything else in the world. So,
Baby.
and I can't say I have the money to spend on one, but someday, maybe someday.
The
But
thing is, if I feel like as a reader myself, I feel like when giving readings to people, that they should come from a space of in your heart and of I just want to help you. I feel like money should not always be the first and main thing that you're pulling for when saying, hey, I got these cards and I'm finna go do some readings for people, because you don't get too much from that in the long run. You're doing it with short-sighted views on it versus I want to do this just to know that you're going to be in a better position tomorrow.
exactly. I mean, it's just that's the way it should be for a lot of businesses in this world, but it's just not the way it is because the almighty dollar always takes precedent over everything.
Oh, that goddamn dollar!
But well, unless there's any other experiences you want to talk about this time, we can jump to creature feature, but I'm gonna leave it up to you. I like to let my guests pick their path.
Oh, I have a picture of an alien on my phone. I saw a weird I would call it a portal. I would call it a portal. I was outside and had happened to look up. The sun seemed to be real bright, and the clouds in the sky were in the formation of a circle. It was in like this real big circle, and someone told me get out the car, and I got out the car and I started taking pictures of the sun and like just the horizon. I went back and looked at the pictures, and on the side of the picture there is a glare, and it looks like a little shot of light. It looks like a bullet of sorts, but when you scroll into it and you look a little closer, it looks like somebody is laying on this. It looks like a body. You can see the shoulders, you can see the head, and you can see the torso and the legs on the back of it. It really, really freaked me out, but at the same time, it was very interesting to see and notice that nobody else was paying attention. Like folks were driving and like there were people outside, but nobody was looking up.
Or I mean, most likely they just couldn't see it. I mean, it was something maybe only you were supposed to see, or only you were able to see. Because I mean, I've heard of stories of people seeing portals a few times, and it's been linked to so many things, to fairies and fae, to aliens, to even glimmermen or Bigfoot might be, if they're extra dimensional creatures, which we don't know. But I mean, and everything has been linked to. I mean, aliens too. What if that's how they travel? What if that's them going through dimensions, kind of? So that's interesting. I mean, and honestly, if you want to send me that picture, I would love to use it as a preview on my Facebook group for your episode. Because
I got you. I will definitely send you all 3 shots I got.
Because we are live streaming tonight on the Parapost Network, but this episode will release this coming Saturday, like all my other episodes do, because that's when it releases on all the podcatchers and whatnot. So
I'll get that to you, and I definitely want to hear other people's feedback on this picture. It's something that I'm very interested in, and to see what other people think about it as well.
Well, yeah, feel free to send to me, and you're welcome to join the Paranormal the Normal group where I'm going to post it, because then you'll see what other people comment on it.
Will do.
Because I try to post hints, not hints and previews about my upcoming episodes every week. The last week I've been kind of slacking because I had a bunch of new podcasts start at once, and just everything went to overflow and that stuff got left behind. But I'm sorry, AJ, but your stories are good enough that you don't need previews, because I just want them to hear them and jump at them.
Look, you got your light. We just need your voice.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I've had in the show is good at verbalizing their stories, and they're very good at making all their stories seem legit to even the biggest skeptics, like that, which I don't like to be a skeptic. I have to be sometimes, because someone has to be, but I don't
sometimes you have to be, because the thing is, what if somebody one day by chance wants to come and pull the wool over your eyes? I always need to be ready.
Exactly. Always watch out for those that just want to tell a paranormal story that they made up because they want to be famous for 5 minutes.
Just a little bit of baby clout, okay? You don't want this clout over here, okay? You don't want none of this.
Exactly. All right. So at this time, we will jump into the creature feature segment, which is usually it's my favorite segment, and a lot of my guests love it as well. So we already covered ghosts, angels, demons, and all that fun stuff. So we'll leave that stuff to the side, which honestly happens on a lot of my shows. And we're going to jump to some of the more physical cryptids that are out there supposedly in the world.
Yeah.
But what I want to see what you think about first is, well, one of my favorite cryptids, dogmen. Have you heard of these?
I have.
Do you think they exist? And if so, what's your theory on how they came to be?
I do think they exist. How they came to be, that's something that I am still doing research in. But I have seen things before that would make me feel like it was a dog man, but I've also had other people give me their experiences. Where do I feel they come from? Baby, I don't know. I just hope and swear for Jesus they not crawling out the ground, because then we got a bigger problem on our hands if they just coming out the ground like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you say coming out the ground, do you mean like underworld creatures?
Like zombie, like
Oh, well, no. I mean, yeah, I that's not a theory I ever heard about. Like where they come from is like zombies, kind of. But I mean, if you think about it, go back to ancient Egyptians, ancient Greece.
Yeah.
They've all had stories of, well, multiple animals being half human, half animal, but they've all especially have had werewolf or stories of dog-headed men. I mean, so, I want to
Or
say,
the cat-like features.
yeah. I mean, look at in ancient Egyptian mythology, it's
Skim it.
yeah, and I've actually had, well, it's a past episodes, but someone's military buddy saw a statue of that in Egypt, and he straight up says, he's like, "What's that supposed to be?" And they're like, "That's an ancient Egyptian god." And he's like, "I saw that twice when I was a kid, growing up in New Orleans, which is Rougarou country."
Right. Which is prevalent for all of that.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, every culture has its own, which I hate this word, but werewolves. Every culture has its own werewolf lore and legends and history. The Beast of Govido, that town in France, I know I just butchered the name of because I can't do French words for anything in my life, but but
Yeah, yeah, I know what he's talking about.
I mean the Beast of Bray Road right here in I want to say Wisconsin, and also the Beast of the Land Between the Lakes up in Michigan. I mean, that's just two famous American werewolves as well. I mean, or dogmen. I My theory is dogmen have always existed, and they're like Bigfoot, and they're a whole subspecies that just survived and
Mm-hmm.
learned to hide from humans for the most part. But as with Bigfoot, it's getting harder and harder because humans are taking all the land, and there's not many. The woods are getting smaller and smaller in certain areas of the world.
Ain't
But
nowhere to hide.
and also the other theory that comes sometimes is that dogmen are demonic or underworld creatures that are cursed to live back up on Earth once they die. Like, and they're not exactly coming out of the ground, I wouldn't say, but I think maybe they show up in portals. Who knows? Or maybe they're just thrust back upon Earth and they don't even know where they are or who they are anymore. They're just these creatures that have dog-like tendencies. Because a lot of times when people see them, they're not trying to attack people or go after people a lot of times. I mean, it's happened. It's happened according to stories, but a lot of times they're just running through fields or eating.
And they sucked off,
And
looking at
yep, yeah, and they'll stop and they'll look at you, and sometimes they'll stand up on two legs and look at you, and that's when you know they're possibly dogmen. But they've also been seen eating roadkill on the side of roads, especially the Beast of Bray Road. That's what a lot of the sites of that war was, eating Bray Road roadkill, which there's woods all around there, so there's a lot of dead small
right.
animals and dead deer and whatnot. But I mean, they have very dog-like tendencies. Not They don't act like humans. I mean, it's rare to hear like, "Oh, it was standing outside my window looking in at me." Like that's so rare to hear that type of dogman experience. I've heard more Bigfoot experiences about that than dogmen. So,
Right.
which, so all right, let's move out of the dog world to another type of half animal, half man creature. But I don't like to say the word because the natives don't like to say the word. So I call them human suit borrowers.
Human suit borrower.
And I'm sure you know the S word I'm talking about.
Um, would
Shin walkers. Let's put it that way. Shin walkers.
okay, got you, got you. The first thing that comes to my mind with that is I'm not for sure if it's real.
Really?
I am not for sure if it's real in the sense that I definitely feel like it has to do with outside sources. The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear human suit walkers is lizard people, is serpents, is things in that nature. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Only because I had a dream and that happened. It was people walking around, and all of a sudden they were in a room and they just kind of came out of the skin, and it was a whole nother different thing standing there. That's what comes to my mind.
Well, because what you're describing reminds me more of reptilians type of thing, and like lizard, like you said, lizard people, reptilians, and yes, that's a whole nother wormhole that we could go down. But human suit wearers, I mean, I anything that
Yeah.
anything that begins with Native Americans, I tend to have more belief in because that means it's been around for a long, long time. And a lot of Native American tribes from the West and Southwest have legends of these creatures being evil medicine men, evil sorcerers, whatever you want. I forget the proper word for it, but I know they don't like the term shaman, so I'm not going to say that they're that, but
But the opposite of a shock.
yeah, which a medicine man, that's the best term I can think of for it.
Yeah.
And when they turned bad, these medicine men would gain this unholy ability to turn into animals, and they would become dangerous and more animal like because the more they took this form. So eventually they lost their humanity to this form, and they would be half man, half beast, just roaming the land, causing destruction to humans.
Okay.
So
That's new for me. You
there's
you you put one on me.
I always try to get one that someone hasn't heard of every show, and there's another one that usually is the one, but this one has been a couple times. However, there is a show on TV that's been on for 2 seasons now. It's called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, which I could say it there because it's a TV show name, but I'm talking about a place, not about creatures. But it's a ranch out in Utah that has a very, very vivid history in the paranormal, from the first people who built it and who bought the land and built up on it to the current owner, who is a major CEO of a company. And the point of the show is he has a paranormal investigator go out there with the ranch people that work at the ranch, and they've had UFOs on video multiple times on this show, and they've had cows mysteriously die and whatnot. So I recommend this show to everybody because it is a true glimpse into a paranormal world that we don't get to see that often.
Definitely. Definitely. Give us the name one more time.
The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Thank you.
It's on, I forget what it's on. It's on Nat Geo or one of those types of channels. I forget which one. It's been a while since I watched it because the third season hasn't dropped on Hulu yet. But the first 2 seasons are on Hulu for anybody who wants to watch it.
Okay.
But all right, let's jump out of the West. Let's move more towards the Midwest, and
Okay.
let's go with Mothman or
Say it again.
Mothman,
Mothman.
as in Point Pleasant, Chicago, Chernobyl sightings over the years.
Have not heard of that one.
Woohoo! I got another one. Yay!
And I'm from Springfield. Okay, I'm about 3 hours south of Chicago. I have not heard of that.
Well, have you ever heard of the movie that came out in the '90s with Richard Gere called The Mothman Prophecies?
I want to say yes, but very, very
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Well, basically, Mothman started appearing in the TNT area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in I believe it was the 60s or 70s. I forget which decade at this point, and it's basically a humanoid looking creature, but with wings like a moth and red eyes and kind of like a moth head and moth wings, but human body kind of. And it's supposed to be 7 foot tall around there. And it was first seen by people driving down the road, and all of a sudden they would see it coming up behind them, flying. And well, it's believed now that it doesn't fly. It kind of flaps its wings like big a takeoff and then glides. But
Okay.
people have seen it gliding behind their cars, and people have like people have had their TV stop working while they're watching TV, and like all the electronics in their house start buzzing in and out, and all of a sudden they look outside and they'll see this thing just standing there looking at them, and one man even lost his dog to this creature supposedly because his dog ran out after it, and the dog was never I forget if the dog was never found or if the dog was found dead in the side of the road a couple days later.
Mm.
But it didn't look like a car hit it even. It just looked like something else did it. So
kind of like a taxidermy situation. Somebody
well,
just
not quite, but I think possibly its neck was broken or something along those lines. Like some, I'm not positive on these details for this one because it's been a long time, but I would say that Mothman has been seen in Point Pleasant, which the point of the movie, the prophecies is it was written by the paranormal investigator who came to Point Pleasant to look into the Mothman like sightings, and he wrote the book, and then they made a movie out of it. And a bridge collapsed right around Christmas week, I believe, in Point Pleasant, and people saw the Mothman up until this happened. So it's also been seen in Chernobyl for the few weeks before the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown. And lately, in like 2017, 18, it's been seen all over parts of Chicago, either on ledges of buildings or flying or gliding around, or just standing in alleyways behind people. And the general theory is it's either an angel or an angelic creature, or it's a demonic creature, because either it's a demonic creature causing doom to happen, or it's an angelic creature trying to forewarn of doom, and they're trying to get people to take notice. But as humans, of course, we don't take notice to anything because we're too.
Well, they're not paying attention. They're not paying attention to shit.
Exactly. So those are the two main theories when it comes to Mothman, and people kind of forgot about them for a long time. I mean, Point Pleasant does a festival every year, a Mothman festival, where they have a basically it's a
day.
It's a good tourist attraction. That's what it is. But and people do love it. I've heard great things about it from people who went. It's fun, but until it started showing up in Chicago the last few years, people kind of forgot about it and like stopped talking about it for a while. But except for, of course, the paranormal lovers. But now people are talking about it again. There's been newspaper articles. There's been news, like live news about this topic, and it's weird because why is it coming back now, and what's going to happen in Chicago that's going to make it? I mean, a lot of bad things happen in Chicago on a daily basis, but
I mean, it's just a city, okay? It's just a city.
Oh yeah, it's a city. Bad things are going to happen every once in a while, but what's going to be bad enough to happen that this thing is around, or what is it trying to cause that's since it's been around? I mean,
right. And what was learned from it the last time it was seen? Exactly. Maybe if we start there with what was learned from its last encounter, then we can find out what this new current encounter is for and what's to be gained.
Well, I mean, the last thing that happened for its encounters for the most part was Chernobyl. So there's a lot to be learned from that, but I think a lot of nuclear plants all around the world learn something from that example. But
yeah, we need some help with that because they keep imploding shit into the goddamn air and we just here to breathe it.
Of course.
Just in through your nose, out through your mouth.
All right. Let's go with this because this is one I haven't done in this show in a few weeks at least. So what do you think about, for lack of a better term, water/lake/sea monsters such as Loch Ness, Champ,
Loch Ness monster,
like Champ or Ogopogo?
I believe that there are underwater creatures. I do feel like there are mermaid things down there. It's a whole nother realm that we have yet to explore. Do I think that there should be further exploration? No, because I feel like humans are going to fuck it up.
Yeah, yes. I mean, as humans in general, any new society we meet, we tend to fuck up pretty fast. I mean, look at all
Fuck
the
it up with the introductions.
native cultures that died out basically within a year of us coming into their land and doing what we did best. So, I mean,
Exactly.
it's just, yeah, it's sad. And who knows how many unknown species of animal died out because of hunting and us going into their land and destroying it that we don't even know existed. They couldn't even be cryptids, so they couldn't even be known animals because of this. I mean, it's just
Right.
sad. I mean, that's like all the giant bones like all the giant human bones we find buried in the ground all over the United States and all over the world, and we can't explain where they came from,
We can't explain the giants, but they're there.
yet a lot of native cultures have stories of giants and dealt with them and traded with them, same as Bigfoot. Native Americans, a lot of the tribes say they're in their history, they traded with what they called hairy men, which were bigger than them by far. So, and they lived up in the woods, or the mountains. They lived usually isolated from every other community. So that just right there, that's what would be my biggest sign that Bigfoot exists and possibly giants exist.
And the thing is, the cultures still have that same sense of exchange for energy and goods. They still have that same bartering system that we so long ago lost and forgot.
Yeah, I mean, back in the better days, whenever you didn't have to have printed paper money just to make deals and
Back when
acquire.
it was good, okay? Back in the good old days.
Yeah, I mean, good couple thousand years ago, before everything got complicated in the world, and it was just simple: hunt and gather and go home.
And live and just be fruitful, okay? Take your ass out there and be fruitful. Be
Yeah,
happy.
exactly. But as far as the water monsters go, what do you think they've always been here and that they just are now being seen a little more because we have devices to capture them, or
Um,
do you think that they're well? I'll see what you say about the first one, then we'll go to the second.
I feel that they have always been here. The only reason why they would be seen more is because our water is running away quickly, ever so quickly. And because of that, those deeper spaces where they used to be, they're no longer considered deep anymore because those waters are receding.
True. I don't like to look at things like this from a ecological standpoint normally because I just feel like that's I don't know. I just don't go there with this, but that does make a lot of sense, and we are polluting the water more as well. So maybe they keep moving, trying to find water we haven't got to yet that's still fresh and clean enough for them to live in and do their lives,
Right.
reproduction,
So
all that
that
fun
then
stuff.
causes them to now then have to find a new adaptation because now they're needing to go deeper into the water. Now that's a whole different temperature setup going on down there. Now their body needs to be able to fight evolution to do better so that they can continue.
I mean, I did just see the other day because I have a guest coming on, I believe, in August named Katie Elizabeth, and she's the world's foremost Loch Ness monster researcher. She spends a lot of time out in the loch in Scotland, and there's a video she posted the other day where you can see something on top of the water, and it looks like a scaly back, kind of. I mean, you can't see too much of it. It could be a lot.
Right.
It could be a log, like they've been saying for years and years with all the pictures and videos, but I highly doubt it because the Loch Ness monster, as well as other sea monsters, go back to well, more recently, they go back to when people started sailing across the oceans, and they go back to also cavemen, even because there's been drawings on walls of these big reptilian
The
creatures,
big
and
creatures
maybe they
with
live.
the
Yes,
foot.
there was giant snakes at one point as well. We know that the Titan boa is a discovered fossil that we not fossil but skeleton we found before, and we know they existed, the precursors to anacondas and whatnot, but there also are still reports to this day of giant snakes in the jungles, that parts of the jungles that most people don't go to. Only the natives know about it, and they warn people stay out of this part of the forest because I mean, there's a famous story that if you Google it, you can find it eventually. But during one of the world wars or during the Vietnam War, a pilot was flying over Africa, I think from Vietnam back to America, doing like a supply run or some island over there. And basically he was flying over a forest and he looked down and there was a giant snake that he could only see part of coming up through the trees, like the top of the trees in this dense jungle.
Mhm.
And the snake supposedly even tried to take a bite out of his plane. Like it snapped up and tried to grab the plane. And this thing was huge. And I've seen illustrations of what people think it would look like and how big it would be to do that. And
Right.
I don't like snakes to begin with. I don't want to see a 1 foot snake. I sure as hell don't want to see a 100 foot snake or something along those lines. I mean,
I don't want to see nothing as big as an airplane, and you told me it's a snake.
yeah. I mean,
What?
so
Take
what it
me home. Take me home. I want to go home.
so if possibly these other creatures like the Titan boa still exist, or if it is a Titan boa even, I mean, what's to say that they're still not the same version of that, but in the seas and in the lakes? I mean, the
Just
lake
underwater
I mean
with little feet.
the Lake Champlain the Lake Champlain monster and Ogopogo and other countless other dozens of American lake monsters, river monsters, whatever you want to call them, have been seen since Native American times and before that. Like since people have written history and had oral stories in history, they've been seen, and the natives used to tell stories of them. They would say that there's a great serpent that lives in that river, so we don't go near it, or there's a great serpent that lives in that lake, so we avoid going too deep in it. So I
Mm,
mean, it's just there's too much evidence out there to say these things definitely can't exist, and people can't just brush it off like it's a joke. Like it's just that to me is not intelligent thinking, because if it's intelligent thinking, you'd realize there's some definite.
it's definitely limiting yourself, but some people don't like to find out that there are things like that out there that takes away from what is normal for them. Now you have to think differently because you've been exposed to something that is out of your normal.
And it also takes away your idea of safety that you think you have, because yes, these things are not breaking into houses. I mean, you ain't seeing no Loch Ness monster come up to your door and say, I need about 350, but you ain't having that
Give me
happen.
350 real right now, okay? And your car keys. Run them.
And for those who don't know, that's a South Park chef reference, but
350. That was a good episode, okay?
oh, that was a good episode, and it's become one of the best memes ever made. But all right, let's do one more creature, and then we'll call this a wrap, I believe. But we did mer people already, so that's awesome. Which just real quick, because you did mention mer people.
Yes, I did mention the mer people, and the mer people are real, and their hands are webbed, and their eyes are big. Those things are real. Y'all watch out for them, okay? I don't swim, so I'm not ever going to encounter them. Let's
Do,
say that.
now, are you one of those who possibly believes they are Atlantis related?
Yes, I do.
Same. I mean, same. There is there's a lot of writings in ancient Greece that make you believe that Atlantis was a real place, and that the Greeks would sometimes visit it and sometimes go to war with it. It was a real country, and things would
But I
happen.
also believe that I've had a past life there as well. But in that life, I was very, very young. And it was more around the time when it was the collapse of it. I have a very, very big fear of water and just being in water. Like I could go to the pool, but like tell me to let the water go over my head, and I just have this whole freak out. It's just this whole I can't. It brings back a lot of fear.
Huh, that's interesting. I mean, kind of makes me think of my childhood fear of there always being a great white shark in every swimming pool I went into because of goddamn Jaws, but which is an amazing movie, an amazing series, but still, it's just for years as a child that terrified me because every swimming pool I went into, I would think in the deep end there was a shark swimming around.
Heck yeah.
As
Look,
as a lot as illogical as that ever could be. I mean, yes,
it was
in the South,
legit.
you can easily get an alligator in your pool sometimes, but I've known people that's happened to. But getting a
Right.
shark to get a shark in a pool, someone would have to physically put it there. And
Ain't no right. Ain't no shark gonna be there. It's okay. No, there is a shark. I'm not going.
I mean, I've seen it on Facebook too. So I'm not the only person with this fear when I was a kid because I've seen a picture on Facebook of a shark in like a high school swimming pool, and it's like, did anybody else have this fear when they were a kid that it was just chilling there waiting for you? Like someone methodically had to put it there for it to be there, and it had to be a bull shark, or otherwise they had to make the whole pool saltwater. So I mean, it just doesn't. It's so illogical to think about now, but when you're a kid, it's just terrifying.
When you're a kid, it's real, and nobody can tell you that it's not real.
Exactly. I mean, your parents could try, but in your head, they're lying to you because they want you to get eaten or something.
Look, they want the evil witch in the stairwell to get you.
I've heard a lot of different versions of that one, but all right. What am I going to do last here for our last creature? Well, all right. I've only hit this one a couple times. I think on the last episode and now this episode. So we're going vampires because there is evidence of some famous cases of that vampires that may still exist today. And the one that comes to mind always is the Highgate Cemetery vampire in London, which is supposedly to this day still being told people are still seeing it at night in the Highgate Cemetery. So, and I mean, there's also a huge history of it in the South with Cajun culture and whatnot, and throughout Europe too. So, do you believe that these creatures ever could have existed, or do they still exist? And if they do, what do you think they are, and where do you think they come from?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that yes, this could be a possibility. As far as where they come from, I feel like they're hybrid humans. I feel like they were us and there was a mutation within them. Because first off, how do you have a normal set of teeth and then all of a sudden now you have these fang sets? And that metamorphosis changes within people's face, like people can see that changing. Have I per se been exposed to see one or have an experience? No, I don't think I want to be around nobody who wants to look at my juicy neck because I got veins that pop and they juicy. No, but I do feel like they could have been something to be here on the earth. Are they still here? I wouldn't be able to give no definitive yes or no on that.
All right, and I'm just looking on the chat on the live Facebook feed now, and I apologize to the listeners. I'm new to this live streaming thing, so I completely forgot chat existed. I was expecting things to pop up on Zoom if they were going to pop up, but someone did ask a question, and they want to know, how do you feel about reincarnation?
I feel that is real, and that we have multiple lives that we come in and out of. And hence the conversation when we talked about Atlantis, me having a past life there. I've also had past lives other places. My most recent one before me being Shante, the wonderful me, I was a guy. I was a male banker in New York. Single, no kids, lived the life of pleasuring me and pleasuring self. Was very lonely. So I definitely feel like reincarnation is something that does happen, that is real.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I've heard so many stories out of India and out of America, even where kids will be born and they'll be able to tell details of a past life that there's no way they would know unless it has to be real. Because a 5, 6 year old is not going on Google and Googling random people to try to steal their lives.
Random deaths. Correct. That is definitely correct. I give you one better if you don't mind, because I do have children. My last child that I was pregnant with, before I had her, I was supposed to be going to the doctors. And I was so tired of being pregnant. I was so motherfucking tired of being pregnant. And so I sat there and I rubbed my stomach. And I talked to her. I said, Nima, I said, today we're going to go to the doctors. Now, if you want to come out, there's something I'm going to need you to do, and you have to do it perfectly. Otherwise, they're not going to let you come out. And so I sat there and I told her that when we got to the doctors, when they did the ultrasound, that she would have to be still, not to move. If she be still, they let her come out. And, you know, at the moment, I was just talking, not thinking nothing of it, not thinking that a child inside of me could listen and be like, oh, okay, assignment understood. I want to come out too. So I went to the doctors. They did the little monitor on me. They went and got ready to do the ultrasound. And when they did that, she didn't move. They was like, when's the last time you felt the baby move? I was like, it was about yesterday. I think yesterday in the afternoon. So they pushing harder. She's not moving. The lady said, we're going to send you up to labor and delivery. We're going to go ahead and get the baby out. You're still too small. You're not growing. All this happened. And I went and delivered the baby. She came out. And the first thing she did when they laid her down on my chest is she lifted her head up and she looked around. Head went from side to side and she looked around. I said, oh shit, bitch, what did you do? I laid her head back down and I said, I said, I see you know what's going on here. I'm gonna let you know you're a baby this time around, okay? You're a baby, okay? You gotta be a kid. Don't lift your head back up no more. Don't do any of that, because now you're acting like a grown-up. So I definitely believe that reincarnation happens even while they're in the womb. They can hear and be perceptive of us.
Well, I mean, it's always been theorized that it's when they're born, that's when they pass through the great beyond, and that's when
that soul change.
Yeah, there could be a soul exchange there easily if someone's trying to get back through and they find a way to do it. But I truly believe in reincarnation. I've heard too many stories about it to not believe in it at all, to think it's a lie. I mean, it just has to be somewhat true to some degree. I mean, I don't think it happens to everybody, but there definitely is some unique cases out there where it's happened, and it's basically been proven.
Most definitely. Thank y'all for the question.
Yeah, Aaron, Deanna, I don't know if you were shared a Facebook account or whatnot, but if I apologize for not seeing your question right away. I'm new to this. The chat next time I'll make sure I'm on the chat watching. So if you listen to this, I'm sorry, and I will reach out to you on Facebook to apologize for that. But so that basically wraps us up for tonight, I believe, unless you want to do any more.
I'm good for now. I'm actually need to head back in there and get ready to make dinner for the kids. But this was fun. I loved it.
Yep, it was very fun. And if you have more experiences to talk about, I'd love to have you back on sometime.
I'm with you. Whenever you need a host, another co-host, I got you.
All right. Well, I'll look at my calendar, see what I can work out, and I'll hit you up again because and we'll just make sure we have the right time zone this time.
Yeah. We need to make sure our times are correct.
That was my bad, folks. I didn't specify what time zone I was in, so that's why this was started later than I announced it was going to start. So, but mistakes happen. So, and it was mine mistake to happen. So
we're human. We're here having a human experience.
I'll take it. But why don't you let anybody who listens know where they could find you if they're either interested in your services or just if they want to learn more about you?
Yes, if you are interested in having a tarot reading, or even if you're interested in having life coaching done, you can find me on Facebook. I have 2 pages. I have my personal page. It is Shante Hood. I'm sure the spelling will be up there for you guys. And then my business page is Earth Angel Shante. That is the same on Instagram as well. I go live there as well, so you can catch me on all those platforms. And then the Oracle 21 on TikTok, because I be trying to do the TikTok. Look, they said don't do the TikTok, Mom.
Yeah, I just signed up for TikTok because I need to get in there to get some preview videos from one of my previous guests, and I have nothing posted yet because I don't know what to do on there.
You just go on there and talk, and then press the button, and they make the magic happen. It's simple. It's simple.
Yeah, I may have to play with it for future previews to try to expand my show, but as my guests know, you can find me on the Paranormal the New Normal Facebook group, which is where I post all the podcasts I'm on, whether it be Bracket Bastards, this show's episodes posted on there, of course, and or Maniacal Music Musings, or TBA, which is a new show I'm on, which will be first episode drops this Friday, along with the next episode of Maniacal Music Musings. So I'm a busy man with a lot of podcasts to do. And there's a fifth podcast. There's another paranormal podcast coming out soon too, with me in a group. So yeah, it's a busy, busy life. Shout out to Global Strangeness. We'll be starting soon, and our first episode will be out next week at some point, probably. But I am on Twitter. I am on Twitter and the Gram as @JuggaloBastard. And I am also on Facebook as Jeremy Bryant. You can find me through either of the Facebook ways and the group or this, or you can find me now on Parapost Network, which Parapost Network Central is the name of the group page, and it's tons of other videos of podcasts like mine, or even paranormal investigation videos on there as well live. So plenty of fun to have in that site. Feel free to check it out. And that's also where all my live streams will be from now on. So feel free to reach out to me there, and we'll see you next time, listener. Thank you.